The aroma of lies had always unsettled me, even before everything changed. They were her favorites, the white ones that resembled trumpets announcing some grand event. Yet today, they carried the scent of a funeral, mourning something once cherished and beautiful. I heard the familiar click of the lock, the jingle of keys, and then the gentle push as the door opened. I kept my gaze fixed on the worn pages of my book, biding my time and listening intently. Her heels tapped against the hardwood floor, a sound that once made my heart flutter, but now felt like a hammer striking, each step resonating with the fractured beat of my own heart. "Honey, I'm home," she called out, her voice overly bright, the artificial cheerfulness clinging to it like a heavy weight. The sound grated on me, reminiscent of nails scraping against a chalkboard. I remained focused on the text, pretending to be absorbed in the lives of fictional characters while my own existence spiraled into a tragic comedy. "Oh, look," she said, her voice now closer, "I got you some lies. I know how much you love them." The blatant falsehood hung in the air, a thick, suffocating cloud. Finally, I looked up, forcing a smile that was likely more of a grimace. "They're beautiful, Sarah," I replied, my voice unnaturally calm, a result of years spent concealing my true feelings. I observed her as she moved through the living room, placing the lies in a vase on the coffee table. She wore her usual summer dress, vibrant against the beige walls, and her blonde hair was impeccably styled, every strand in place. She was the same Sarah, yet entirely different from the one I had fallen in love with. Love enveloped her, but then she halted, her eyes widening in shock. Her perfectly painted lips parted slightly, and the color drained from her face, leaving her as pale as the lily she had brought. "Where? Where is it?" she whispered, her voice barely audible as the bright facade she maintained began to crumble. I understood precisely what she meant. The space above the fireplace, which had proudly displayed our enormous framed wedding picture for the past 8 years, was now bare. I had taken it down that very morning, the hooks removed and the wall wiped clean, leaving no trace behind. "What's missing, Sarah?" I asked, my tone calm and almost detached, hoping she would articulate the guilt she worked so hard to conceal. "The picture, the wedding picture. Where is it?" she exclaimed, pacing nervously, her heels clicking against the floor, the sound echoing in the sudden stillness. I finally set aside my thick biography of Abraham Lincoln and placed it on the coffee table. As she stopped pacing and turned to me, her eyes searched mine, a flicker of panic replacing her earlier fear. "Why?" she asked. I leaned back in my chair, meeting her gaze with a steady voice. "Because, Sarah, a picture is meant to capture a moment in time, a memory, a snapshot of a specific point in a relationship. And that picture, that wedding picture, it's a lie." She recoiled as if I had struck her, her voice trembling as the calm facade shattered. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her composure slipping away. "It's a picture of us on what was supposed to be the best day of our lives, a day that was meant to mark the beginning of a lifelong promise, and yet, it no longer reflects who we are, does it? It's merely an image, a reminder of something that has faded away." I observed her struggle to make sense of it all, the confusion gradually giving way to a dawning realization. Her eyes narrowed, and for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of anger that she quickly stifled. It wasn't a question, it was a declaration of truth, the full impact of my words finally settling in. "Yes, Sarah, I know." I let the silence linger, thick and oppressive, with unspoken accusations hanging heavily between us. "How long?" she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "Long enough." I chose not to elaborate, refraining from mentioning the burner phone I had discovered tucked away in her purse or the endless texts and late-night calls that painted a vivid picture of her double life. I kept silent about how I had painstakingly documented every piece of evidence, each betrayal, a heart-wrenching task that nearly shattered me. 2. Who is he? She asked, her voice quivering. Does it matter? I replied, my tone devoid of emotion. His name wouldn't alter the reality of your betrayal. Sarah, it won't erase the months filled with lies and deceit. She sank onto the couch, her face buried in her hands, the lilies forgotten on the table. I don't know what to say, she sobbed, the perfect facade finally crumbling. Don't, I said firmly. Just listen for once. I retrieved a small, flat box from the side table. Unlike the jewelry boxes I had given her in the past, this one was a simple cardboard box tied with a plain brown string. I placed it on the coffee table before her, watching as she slowly lifted her gaze, her eyes red and swollen, brimming with questions, confusion, and a flicker of hope. As she untied the string, her hand trembled, and inside, she discovered not jewels, but stacks of meticulously organized papers, bank statements, phone records, travel itineraries, and a few glossy photographs. The photographs I had secretly taken revealed a stark truth. They were not the affectionate moments they appeared to be. These images captured hidden encounters and whispered conversations shared between her and him. As she sifted through the evidence, silence enveloped her. The reality was laid bare, and her complexion drained of color as she grasped the depth of my awareness. The flicker of hope in her eyes was snuffed out, replaced by sheer, unfiltered terror. My voice was steady yet low as I laid it all out, every deceit, every clandestine meeting, meticulously documented. The weight of her betrayal crashed down upon her, and the sob that escaped her lips was a raw, gut-wrenching sound. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with desperation, but I felt no compassion, only an overwhelming fatigue. I made a mistake, she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. I echoed her words, laced with sarcasm. A mistake? No, Sarah. This was a choice, a calculated decision to shatter our vows, to dismantle our marriage, to hurt me. She remained silent, defeated, the truth finally reflected in her gaze. I'm leaving, I declared as I rose to my feet. I've packed a bag and filed for divorce. You'll receive the papers within the week. There's also a letter from my lawyer among those documents, detailing the prenup we signed on the day that photograph was taken, the day you ceased to be part of my life. I walked toward the door, not looking back, leaving her amidst the wreckage of her lies, the sound of her heels clicking on the floor echoing in the silence. Once, the echoes of joy filled my heart, but today they resonated like the final toll of a bell for something that never truly existed. As I stepped outside, I inhaled deeply, and for the first time in months, the air felt refreshingly pure. The burden that had weighed me down was finally lifted. My satisfaction stemmed not from her suffering, but from my newfound freedom. The memory of her pale face, framed by a web of deceit, became a form of revenge that surpassed my wildest expectations. I drove away, leaving her to grapple with the quiet murmur of her own regrets and the hushed remnants of a marriage that was doomed from the start. A profound certainty settled within me, a deep-rooted knowledge that I was finally free,